Hello everyone, my name is Angelo, and today I'm just going to kind of talk about some random little quirks about commuting on a motorcycle every day, some things that y'all may not think about or some things that you might run into that would help mitigate this in the future. So this is kind of a definitely off the cuff, no script, not even bullet points, and I'm just kind of talking about some random few things that I discovered on this journey of riding a bike every single day. So the reason why I'm making this video is that actually the other day, this is going to be about a month from the time you actually get to see this video, is I actually got a pretty gnarly case of nausea and headaches and like light sensitivity. I don't know if it was something I ate or something I drank or what it was, but my body was just going completely nuts. I had a pretty bad headache. I had some very, not blurred vision, but I couldn't focus on my vision, and I was very nauseous. Now the thing is, this didn't happen until after I got to the place that I was going, and then I realized that I had to ride home, and there were some things that I kind of want to talk about. And the main thing is, like, what is it like to ride when you're in kind of like an ailment of this case? And it's actually not that bad. So at least for me, like the nausea, it didn't go away, but the fear of puking into my helmet was very real, and I didn't want to do that, so I really held it in. I was also more than willing to puke outside before I put my helmet on, so that's another thing too. And I thought about it some more, and I was like, maybe it's just kind of a mentality thing when it comes to riding a motorcycle, because I could have just gotten an Uber, I could have called a friend to come pick me up, but no, instead I decided to ride the 15 minutes home anyway. And I was questioning, like, why did I do this to myself? And there's nothing inherently wrong with riding in this case, other than the fact that my vision was blurred, which is not good, because then that means I can't see objects in the road and all that stuff. But other than that, like, my headache actually didn't hurt any more than it already did from the vibrations of the wind. Granted, I also have a windscreen, so a lot of the wind is going over my helmet, or just over the top of my helmet and not at my face. And like, so the vibrations of the bike didn't really make me any more nauseous or anything, and leaning around turns didn't make me not more nauseous either. So I think that when you ride a bike as often as you do, especially as a daily commuter, there is this harmony with the bike. And granted, I'm kind of going off the rails here a little bit with my word choice, but it's kind of like when you have a headache or when you're nauseous in your car, you just kind of deal with it till you get home, then you take care of it. And with a motorcycle, if you ride it all the time and you're used to the inconveniences of a motorcycle, then it's the same thing, in my opinion, as well. Now I thought for sure that before I even put my helmet on I was gonna puke, because when I left my destination that I got at, it was 95 degrees outside, and I still had to put on my helmet, my jacket, my gloves, and get all geared up and be all nice and toasty and start sweating. But surprisingly, that extra added heat didn't cause nausea. Well, it did cause more nausea, but I still didn't puke even if I was willing to do so. And another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about too is just other physical ailments as well, because I remember there was a point in time where I reactivated a back injury, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna ride, because at least on a MT-07, the suspension, at least the suspension setting I have, it's pretty stiff. You can feel most bumps in the road, and that's personally how I like to ride. I like having a really stiff suspension, so that way I feel like I have complete control over the bike. Obviously, if you're on a cruiser, this would be a completely different scenario, but lo and behold, as a fairly surprising thing, is that riding my motorcycle didn't hurt my back any more than it already hurt. That it just didn't change much. I don't know if it's because it was something I was prepared for or what. Now keep in mind that I did take precautions, like for an example, if I saw a speed bump or if I saw any other large bump that I had to go over, I would stand up on my bike, so that way my back wasn't absorbing all of that and my legs were instead. But outside of that, it was pretty normal. So that makes me wonder, like, what is it really hard to ride a motorcycle every day if I can, at least for me, if I can ride that way? And for me, it's no, I still can do it just fine. It's just, you need the mentality to be able to ride in these physical ailments. It's the same mentality that you need to ride in rain, to ride in heat, to ride in cold, to ride in snow if you're in a place that has snow. If that, I don't recommend that, but you can do it. And the thing is, if you really want to do bike life, is that you have to be committed to these things as well. These are things that you have to choose to deal with, because they will happen. Now keep in mind that I carry a backpack everywhere, and in this backpack I do carry medicine for this purpose. If I feel myself starting to get a headache at some place, I'll take some Tylenol. If I have some form of swelling, or if I just feel weird, I'll take some ibuprofen and kind of just hammer all this stuff out and try to deter it. Drink lots of water, all that stuff, and try to deter this before it actually happens. But sometimes, like even Tylenol, ibuprofen, water, that's not going to solve your issue. You're just going to feel like crap, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Now, as a person that's looking to doing a commuting lifestyle on a motorcycle, these are things you have to consider. Now, if you only live 5 minutes away from your home, this is not that big of a deal. But if you're one of those motorcycle riders that has a 40-minute commute, 50-minute commute, 1-hour commute, and so on and so forth, this might be a serious issue with you. And like on top of that, if you do live an hour away via motorcycle, that Uber, that taxi, that Lyft, however you decide to get home, is going to be pricey, and that has to outweigh the cost of actually owning a car, or you need to have the funds to be able to do that. Because if you can't do that on those rare occasions that you have these ailments and you physically cannot ride, then you probably should sell your bike and get yourself a car. And this is coming from an avid motorcycle rider that loves motorcycle riding. If you cannot afford an Uber for every single time you're sick, or even multiple days if you have an injured back and you can't ride your motorcycle, you shouldn't own a motorcycle. And this is something that I didn't really talk about in my commuting video that I made a couple days back, realistically a couple months. And that's something I really want to hit home in this video, is that if you do not have the money to have alternative forms of transportation, because a motorcycle is a physical activity. It is not a strenuous physical activity. It can be, but for most people it's not, if you go from point A to point B in a very casual street riding fashion. But it does still require some form of physical activity. If you hurt your foot, you can't shift or brake. If you hurt your hands, you can't shift or brake, or apply throttle, or use the turn signals, or use your horn, or flip your passing lights if you have passing lights, or flip your high beams. Like, the motorcycle requires a lot of manual control that a car, especially if you drive a Tesla, you can get away with. And if you have physical ailments, you need to find a way to combat that so you can still work, and so that way you can still go on your daily life. Luckily, with Amazon and with Walmart groceries being able to be delivered and stuff like that, you can remedy a lot of this stuff. But the point away to take away from this long video is that if you have the mind for it to commute every single day, you can commute with a headache and with physical ailments. But there will be days that you cannot do that, and on those days I hope you have a friend, or you hope to have funds, or you have some form of alternate transportation to get what you need to get done, because life doesn't stop just because you're hurting. And the last thing we want, or at least for me, is me wanting to see you out of a job because you decided to take my advice to do motorcycle riding 24/7 and didn't consider the repercussions of that action. So that's just something I had to think about, because again, I was very sick yesterday, and something I wanted to talk about. Granted, my channel's still pretty small, so the chances of someone hearing this is pretty unlikely. But hey, if you liked it, give it a like, share it if you know someone that needs to hear this, and of course subscribe if you want to see more motorcycle content. Thank you, I'm Mikel Angelo, and I'll see y'all in the next one.